Hey guys, this is my review for Reus. So in Reus you play as four gods and then basically you just walk around a planet shaping it. So then you can add like forests, swamps, oceans or deserts and then you create minerals or resources on that land and then humans will come and they'll colonize the land and then they'll make use of the resources to grow their villages and then they create projects which create bonus resources for their villages, and they also allow them to call in ambassadors to help your god creatures to upgrade their powers. So basically, you just have to try and keep your villages alive and keep advancing them, but don't advance them too quickly, or else they get greed and then they'll attack other villages. So then you either have to kill the attacking village or just let them destroy the other village. But yeah, usually you just build your village based on whatever their main like research or their main building that they're wanting you to complete is, and then you just shape all their resources around that. You don't really have to do a balance between wealth, food, and research. So the game does like set timelines or time period sort of things. So you start off with the tutorials, which are like 15 minutes or so, and then you go into 30-minute free play sort of things where your gods will only stay awake for 30 minutes before they go back to sleep, so you have to try and advance them as much as possible. And then before you can unlock the 1 hour time modes, you have to get a certain amount of achievements, so they're making sure that you're at the skill level necessary to play at those long time modes. So kind of the longer you play, the harder it becomes, because the further you get along in your research and advancing your villages, the harder it is, because they increase in greed, and then they'll just become harder and harder because it's less land to put resources on, so you have to be more creative with your transmutations of the plants and using the plants or mineral abilities to best increase whatever it is that you're needing for that village. So there's basically just plants, animals, and rocks in this game that give you stuff. There's not really a whole lot of like variety between them. You can't put like plants or rocks in the ocean or anything like that. You have to use animals, as far as I'm aware. I think you can put them in the ocean, but they just come up dead and don't really offer much. Unless you can do like a really good transmutation. I think one of the plants you can transmutate to live in the ocean, but it doesn't really offer as much as if you were to use fish, which offer the best for the ocean area. But I think the longest you can do is like 3 hours or something for a gameplay. Um, but yeah, I think hour long is probably the funnest one that you can do for 60 minutes of gameplay, which usually you can get like 5 or 6 villages going and then get them up to quite a high level in that time, if you know how to play the game properly. But I do must say this game does get very repetitive, since they don't really change god powers or anything, and the villagers always seem to ask for the same sort of buildings for you to complete for them, so you can sort of just start building the stuff needed for the buildings before they even create it or ask you to start doing it. So it gets kind of boring like that. The villagers sometimes attack your gods, which means you have to either destroy the village attacking them or go and hide your god and then like heal them up, because sometimes they have healing powers that you can use so that they don't die. Um, but there's not like a heap to do in this game really. It's quite slow sometimes. I think they should probably add a speed function to speed it up, but it is based on time, so there's not really much they can do about it, I guess. You do have like this random bar in the top left hand corner which measures the total like wealth that your world has, and then when it reaches a certain point you unlock a new person who can start a village, and then basically they'll just look for a suitable plot of land. So they can't start a village in land that hasn't been touched by your gods, so you have to either create swamps or forest or desert for them to build on. They don't build on the ocean. And then I think if you don't have enough room on your land, sometimes they'll build really close to one of your other villages and then they'll fight over resources and they'll just start fighting really quickly. You can increase the size of the planet in the options menu, and you can change some of the game settings to make it easier for you if you're having like trouble playing the game, but I don't think you really need to because the game is quite easy. It's not like a super challenging game. You just have to work out the different transmutations of plants. So transmutation is basically where you place like a base plant and then you've got little enhancements that you can put on plants. So you put multiple enhancements on it and then you can increase a certain resource that it offers. So sometimes you can turn a plant into like cotton or something, and then all the plants near it then give it like an extra 10 food for each plant. So then instead of it just producing like 6 food that it normally would, it would now produce like 60 food or something ridiculous. So you sort of gotta try and build your plants to like match what you need, and then build around the plant. So sometimes it's annoying if your village places in a really awkward position, like somewhere where it is just nowhere to really use your resources' main ability to your benefit, which is super annoying. But only 2 of your gods can destroy villages. You have to like move them over. I think the swamp one, it takes a couple of attacks. So if you're in a real rush to destroy a village, you probably want to use the rock monster more than the swamp monster. But otherwise, destroying the village isn't like a permanent thing. I think usually there will be some roaming person who will show up and he'll start the village exactly where the old one was, and then you just have the same problem unless you destroy some of the resources that are causing them to be really greedy and to like lash out at other villages or your gods. So you sort of have to keep an eye on everything. It does get kind of hard when you got like five villages or 6 villages and they're all sort of needing you to complete a project at the same time, and then you have to sort of manage all your gods trying to decide which ones to do first. Usually I'll just leave a couple of the projects and just let them fall through because they'll just ask you again like 5 minutes later to do that project, so it's not like a huge deal if you don't do it in time. I think sometimes they get kind of angry if you like continuously fail their projects and then they'll start attacking you a little bit, which is kind of sucky, but it happens. But yeah, the graphics, there's not like a whole lot to this game. It's just really simple, short, like small animations. There's not anything major about this game. But I think they do quite a good job at it. For what they're doing, they probably could add more to this game because it does get very repetitive, quite boring. But it's not a bad game. It's quite fun to play if you're into these sort of games. So if I had to give it a rating, I'd just give it a 6 out of 10 because it's not the most amazing game I've played. It's definitely not one I like continuously play over and over or super want to play. I think it's when you play for like 8 or 9 hours maybe, and then you've just kind of had enough of doing the same thing. But yeah, it's just my opinion of the game. If you agree with it or don't agree with it, drop what you thought of the game in the comments below this video. Otherwise I'm only going to give it a 6 out of 10. Okay guys, see ya.